Thank you very much for that introduction. Governor of the Central Bank, senior management staff, other members of staff of the Central Bank. I am deeply honored to be here today, and I want to congratulate the Central Bank for having this observance, this vision to have this observance. And it's very overwhelming to be here because when I was growing up and attending the Eric Williams lectures and later on the Capelio lecture, I always say that only famous and important people would be up here on the stage. Or maybe if you could act good, you would be up here on the stage. So I'm very overwhelmed to be here on this stage. I want to tell you all why I felt the need for this day. And one of the reasons was that some of you all might remember that game with the strike squad where we lost 1-0 to United States. And that game of football in the National Stadium and the build-up to that game created a sense of unity. It created a sense of solidarity where we all came together. In fact, you might even see some maxi taxis with those signs still, strike squad. And I've realized that that day, November the 19th, was a very important day for Trinidad and Tobago. It brought us together. That stadium was filled with everybody, the rich, the poor, different religions, people from different communities, all walks of life. And I said, I wish I could capture that day again. I wish we could continue that day. And we often see that unity in other sports. We see it when Brian Lara broke those records. We see it when, during the Olympics, when one of our own win a medal, be it bronze or silver or gold. So sport is very important. It's also my dad's birthday, and I see him as a hero in my family and also as a good role model. And I know that there are a lot of dads out there who remain invisible. There are a lot of good boys, teenagers, who remain invisible. Invisible because they are not in the newspapers, they are not in the media, but they are doing their good work. There are a lot of single fathers who are working 2 jobs sometimes to mind their children. Sometimes they might have a man, maybe tragically his wife died or girlfriend, and he's raising his children, he's the sole breadwinner, and these people remain away from the public's eye. So I feel that on this day I've been telling people that we need to remember some of these simple working class people who have contributed so much to Trinidad and Tobago. Now, one of the issues I have with this Men's Day is that every year, sometimes I feel that it is not really achieving much. Sometimes it seems as a failure. And look, today I have seen the murder rate crossed 400 persons. And I say to myself, has International Men's Day since 1999 really impacted on Trinidad and Tobago? We have so many murders. Last month, when I was driving along Piccadilly Street, I saw a female vagrant washing her clothes in a pothole. And I felt powerless to help that lady. Sometimes while I'm driving into Port of Spain, I see young men crossing the Beatum to go into the dump to look for items. And I ask myself, am I really serving a purpose at the University of the West Indies? How could I really help society? And I want you all, I know the theme this year is very appropriate, go for it. I don't want you all just to be self-centered and concerned about yourself or your workplace. That is fine. But I want you all to try to do something for humanity. We have many divisions in Trinidad and Tobago, not just those who live in hotspots and gated communities. We are divided along racial and ethnic lines. We are divided also along cultural lines, religious lines. There are so many divisions in Trinidad and Tobago, and I wonder how come we come together just for Carnival Monday and Tuesday, and then after that, those divisions continue. And sometimes the politics in this country creates those divisions. And I want us to put aside our divisions. I want us to make it something permanent. I don't just want to see temporary unity during times of sport or during times of carnival. I want to see something permanent. One of the problems plaguing the men's movement, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but globally, is the issue of the gays, right? We have the LGBT movement. We have a lot of men there. When I'm telling them about International Men's Day, they are saying, should we include the gay men? It's all men. It's also including the women and children because they are part of the family unit. So I want you all to remember that this International Men's Day, I want you all to remember it includes everyone, particularly a focus on trying to unite, trying to build solidarity with the men. It's a global, non-violent revolution. It has spread to more than 80 countries across the world. I sometimes have to wake up late in the night, going on Google Translator to try to translate messages I've been receiving in Portuguese, French, Dutch, Spanish, replying to these people. And the latest country, Nigeria and Uganda, are very excited about observing these days. And I feel that here in Trinidad and Tobago, we need to do more. We need to do more for society, and I'm hoping that we could also remove on this day some of the stereotypes and stigmas attached to the men. The governor so rightfully mentioned about the good work, and he mentioned that famous example about the missing man in the photograph, and so many of our men are missing from the family. So many men are missing from the picture of Trinidad and Tobago, so many good men. And I want on that day, November the 19th, to see some of these good men come out, for the media to highlight some of these good people who are doing volunteer work. They are visiting homes, they are volunteering their time with NGOs, they are helping children who might need counseling. And a lot of times, these men are absent from society. And I want to see these men being promoted again. I also want to remind you that this day, it's not just for people who are positive role models. I have reached out also to prisons across the world to try to also get the prisoners to become good role models, to change their lives. And we actually have a few observances in prisons in Canada, United States. In the Caribbean, we have in Jamaica and Guyana a few prisons that will be observing International Men's Day. So I've made it my business to try to be like an ambassador and ensure that men are empowered, to ensure that men are brought to the highlight in society and that society appreciate the value of men. I want to touch on something that all of us would know by now, the recent United States presidential elections. There was a lot of hatred, and that hatred is still continuing. There was a lot of sexism and racism. There were a lot of comments that were made that show that that society is still patriarchal. And when I heard these comments during these debates, and when I see these protests, I am asking myself if United States is not a third world country. Maybe we are the first world country in our way of thinking, our progressive way of thinking. I am beginning to wonder that. And when I see some of the things happening in these countries, I realize that they might need International Men's Day more than us. I also want to tell you that one of the reasons I felt the need for this day is that sometimes men are stereotyped as being very strong, as being unable to face difficulties. And we tend to get that image from the movies. We tend to go to those movies and we expect men to be strong. We don't expect men to cry. We don't expect men to display any signs of emotional weakness. And a lot of times men have all this emotional hurt bottled up. They might have a lot of anger bottled up, and they want a way to vent it. And sometimes men are like walking time bombs, waiting to explode, and that is why we have sometimes violent incidents. Sometimes we have stereotyped certain jobs as being only for women and not for men. Or we have stereotyped jobs as being for men, and not for women. Let me give you a good example. When you hear the term secretary, you immediately think a woman. These days, when you hear primary school teacher, you're thinking a female. Where are the men in our secondary and primary schools? When you hear hairdresser, you think woman. You hear chef, you think a man. But sometimes, you'd be surprised, in some of the homes, some of the families expect the woman to do the cooking, and some of the best chefs in the world are men. So you see, we have even stereotyped some jobs, and we have labeled them and say, that is only for men. Those jobs are only for women. Think about it. A few years ago, when you used the term engineer and say, I'm going to ask an engineer to come and fill this role, you're thinking a man. Nobody would have thought that we had good female engineers. So I want you all to start to do some rethinking. You have to start deconstructing these myths and these stereotypes around you in society. We have to try and break down these stigmas. We have to try to unravel this discrimination and these layers of hate and discrimination that have been entrenched in our society. Now, I don't expect International Men's Day to be the magic day to solve our problems. We have other issues that are affecting us, and we need to work and collaborate with other organizations and other persons to try to solve these problems. Because sometimes people would interview me and they would say, how do you plan to get rid of patriarchy? How do you all plan to get rid of racism? It cannot just be one day. It cannot just be me. It has to be all of us. It's a group project. The society is partly responsible. So I want you all to bear that in mind, that this day, it is not a day to solve all the problems by itself. It is a day that needs support from you all. So I want to thank you all for inviting me. As I told Sean earlier, I want you all to ask some questions, right? I'm willing to take some questions from you all, and I'm really glad to see you all today. I really want to thank everyone for coming here, and especially the senior management for deciding, and the governor, that this was a good idea to have.